That's it. And that's what part that I think we're really trying to get to now is like with the topics even moving forward is to get to things that we as individuals really have a passion about. So, and we could be on two opposite sides of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. But that way, I believe, or we believe that it's going to not only just draw people in, but it's going to maybe even offer up some answers, because there are people that are going to be on, we're not going to agree with everything. But the whole idea behind the podcast is that even though we don't agree on everything, we're still all believers. Mm-hmm. And we still understand what our end result is and where we want to end up. You know what I'm saying? But it's not like, oh, Rob, you ain't saved because blah, blah, blah. It's not like none of that. So stand on your own too. It's all good. And we just want everybody to be impactful and intentional, insightful, and respectful. Okay?
Cool. And you can
good?
You can cuss like Christian did. Christian be cussing.
Yeah? Okay, cool. I'm betting.
So, Christians curse?
The eyewitness who was a part of this podcast here for the last 3 episodes. No, I ain't say no cussing words. That what people do. That's how they flip on you. That she was cussing. That's
okay, let it be known. I'm working hard when I ain't on the phone. This ain't a home, this ain't a phone. Grind never stopping, I'm keeping it cold. Unlocking the door with the holy key. You supposed to be this close to me, and hopefully you understand G.O.D.
Welcome everybody to the latest episode of Unlearning Religion. I am the host, Robert McNair, and we have the crew here in the studio having a good conversation going on here today. All right. Mm-hmm. We also have a guest by the name of Robert Hooper, who actually has his own podcast called Reset, right? Mm-hmm. Well, why don't you go ahead and say the name so I don't mess it up?
Well, what's going on, everybody? The name of my podcast is actually Reset, Relationship, Not Religion.
Okay. So you all see and understand this goes quite in line with what we talk about here in Unlearning Religion. And so, Rob, as we kind of go through, feel free to chime in, feel free to even say more about yourself. Like, this is an open forum, and we just want everybody to be open and honest and clear. So welcome for being the first official guest.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We appreciate you coming through. So a lot of stuff been going on these last couple weeks, and so one of the things that we have really been talking over, and especially Jarvis and I, to let y'all know, like, Jarvis and I used to work together, right? And like every lunch, it was a new topic. Like literally every time we went to lunch, Monday through Friday, it was a new topic. So it was everything from who your top 5 sports, teams was, to what else have we talked about? We talked about music, obviously.
Man, music. I said Prince was trash, and
that's what's
wow.
Here you go, bro. Here you go.
He literally said like
just
Prince
like
was like
trash. It was, and it just wasn't.
He did say it, and so this is one of the topics that we talked about, like what really is, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it. What is church hurt? Right. Mm-hmm. So the name of this episode is Church Hurt: Excuse or Abuse. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have situations that we have all encountered in church that they hurt us, right? But could we throw into the category of church hurt? I'll say, for instance, we all have probably been to the church where it's not really that big, and there's something that go on between you and another member, mm-hmm. and then you go and you sit in the congregation, and then next thing you know, your exact situation is coming from the pulpit, and God did not give that man or woman revelation on it. It wasn't them but gossip. You feel me? Mm-hmm. And so then, based off of that, there are some things that happen, right? There are some things that happen as far as the individuals are hurt, right? The individuals could choose to go to a different church, mm-hmm. Yep. Or they could choose to stay. And then if they choose to stay, they hit the ridicule, the mockery, or even if they choose to leave, it's the ridicule and the mockery and stuff like that. So that could be an example, right? I'm sure everybody knows that. But there's also another side of it. Like, is everything church hurt? Like, is the fact that somebody didn't say hi to you church hurt?
Yeah.
You feel me?
Yeah.
So I'm just throwing this on the table. Anybody can pick this up with your experience or something like that. But what is church hurt really? Is it an excuse? Is it an excuse, or is it abuse?
I think before I go into abuse, excuse, what'd you say? It was good though.
Abuse
It
or
had a-
excuse,
Okay.
or
But,
excuse or abuse.
No,
Them
I
the
think
two words.
before going into that part, a lot of times when you hear church hurt, immediately the church itself gets offended and they're like, no, I'm tired of hearing that, church hurt. It wasn't church hurt, it was people hurt. Well, the issue is it happened in church. And for people who aren't necessarily in a space where they have a strong relationship with God, they look at it as the church hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I was out here and I came to Christ, but then I received everything but the love of Christ. So to me, that's church. That's church. They affiliate the people in church with church.
Yeah.
And I think that's one area I think we have to overcome as the people of God is accepting how easily others could be offended who are not necessarily strong in Christ yet. You know what I mean? And it's like we're so quick to be like, no, people hurt you. You know what I mean? It wasn't the church. No, because I dealt with it. If I came to the church and I expected to experience the love of God, or honestly feel accepted and not rejected and feel, feel as if that I was, enough rather than feeling as if I was critiqued or judged, then to me that's the church. I don't know that the church, as we like to say, well, people are people and they're human. Well, I'm not thinking about that. I came to church to meet Christ and to get something different than what I experienced in the world. In the world, I was rejected, I was abused, I was manipulated, I was, used and so forth. So I expected to see different. And I think it starts with accountability in the church. What are we doing? Are we reflecting the love of Christ? Are we honestly accepting people? Are we just kind of pounding immediately on them judgment and ridicule? And are we honestly using and manipulating? Be honest, as the church as a whole, instead of just saying, no, people hurt you. No, people did, but they were in church. So church.
Yeah.
And I get that. I've seen very recently a lot of, church leadership, pastors, things like that, especially on social media. Oh, there's no such thing as church hurt, it's an excuse and things like that. And I get where they're coming from because they feel like they're being guilted or blamed. But the thing is that when we bring this stuff up, we're not trying to guilt or blame them. We see an issue that needs to be fixed. And if you got roaches in your house, you know what I'm saying? You want, call the exterminator. Don't just be, ain't no roaches in my house. No, it's there. Like, they're there. I saw 5 of them when I came in. Just, let's go get some ortho or some Raid or whatever and take care of it. But instead we try to I ain't got that. We don't got that problem over here. And it's like, no, we got that problem. And it's okay. Let's fix it instead of trying to push it back, and hide it.
Yeah. I think for me, I kind of echo your sentiments, Rob. It's like you gloss over and act like somebody's feelings aren't important instead of taking the time to ask, what's going on? What is your issue? We just automatically be like, oh man, it ain't nothing. And we allow that person to be, they say that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. That's what popular saying is.
Yeah.
So when you leave things unaddressed, then they start rehearsing scenarios.
Yeah.
Then they start pulling out stuff that probably really wasn't even there.
Yeah.
But the fact that you didn't address it in the beginning, now all of these other things unfold, which is what I feel leads to that church hurt process, because all they're saying is, I'm hurt. That's all they're saying, is that I'm hurt. When you neglect that hurt, then I'm hurt by the church because, like you say, the church was supposed to help me. Now the church did not help me, so now I'm hurt by the church. Even though it could have been, it could have been something you could have very well did. Like I've seen some people do some really stupid stuff in church and then turn around and be like, "Oh, the church hurt me." Be sitting there like, "No, you did that."
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've sat at both sides of it growing up in the church and then being in like a leadership position. Because I'm sensitive, I'm always like, oh, I don't want to say nothing to hurt a person feeling. And sometimes folks just be tripping. Like, point blank period, like, well, she didn't speak to me today. Or, just make up narratives in their heads. But what I've picked up is if you really have a heart to not be offensive to people, the Holy Spirit would kind of tell you like, well, just go check. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just sensitive like that. And I would go to them and like, is everything okay? And then it's like, it breaks that wall down for them to say, well, when X, Y, and Z happened, and then it gives me the opportunity to smooth it over. Like, well, no, that wasn't my intention. Next time that happens, just let me know, blah, 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 blah. So, I've had that experience where people are just really sensitive, and I think it's due to the expectation. I'm in church and everybody's supposed to be perfect. You know what I'm saying? Or they're supposed to know. Yeah. When you have to understand it's different people, different personalities, and you coming together, you know what I'm saying? So you gonna ruffle some feathers here and there. But some people just be tripping. But then on the other side, church people can be very mean. I mean, excuse me, but mean as hell. For no reason, and like I said, just growing up in the church is like, if your feelings hurt, oh, you walking in your flesh. No, my feelings are hurt. You just called me fat. I just had a baby. No, that's real. There's a sensitivity you do need to have if you're in leadership with people, but then also, lay members. I don't really like that term. Yeah. You have to understand you're dealing with flawed people, but then if you're going to be in leadership, you can't be like you up here and everybody else up here, because then you kind of set yourself up, But I've been on both ends, and both ends suck, because it's like, no, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I'm really sorry, But then on the other end, it's like, I can see how you can jump to that conclusion, because especially women, in my experience, and I think that feeds into that issue that I'm still even working with my relationship with women. They can be mean. Yeah. For no reason. No reason. So, yeah.
So is it like, are we saying that there's maybe a line? Or does that vary? Go ahead.
I think it's not, because I want to address something you said earlier too. And, I don't think that I don't think most of us, when we talk about church hurt, are just saying something because it happened at church. But I think what it is, part of it is there's a toxic culture and there are broken systems in the church that spread across many churches, across at least this nation. I've not been to church in a lot of nations, but at least in this nation, that I'm like, I can point to a situation and say, and 100 people in 30 different cities can say, yeah, I went through that same thing, and they've never met me. We've never been in the same building with each other, but they've had that same experience at a church. And it's like, that's that collective church hurt that we're talking about. It's not just anything that hurts your feelings in a church, but there are certain things that are like collective, like painful moments that most of us have experienced, Name
one.
Oh, I got one on top of my head. But this is a small one. This is something real small, but most of us have dealt with a usher walking up to you, spit that gum out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's like, that's fine. Like, that's nicer. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Now that's a very minor, example. But for example, I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about, I have a friend of mine who I didn't know until a few years ago, but she was molested by our youth pastor. And it's like, and not only was she molested by him, but like the church kind of covered it up and kept them in place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, how does that happen? You know?
Yeah.
And what's crazy is like, you know, I served in youth ministry there, so I know what the policy is if somebody reports something like that, and I know the policy wasn't followed.
Yeah.
Because I served there.
Right.
So I was like, how does this happen? If this has been the policy since I was a kid, you know what I'm saying? How does this happen? But then I'm telling somebody this story, and they're telling me, yeah, that happened over at the place we were at. And then somebody else, oh, that happened over here. And I'm like, these things can't be like, you know, this is not a singular thing. This is something that like a lot of us have noticed and a lot of us have seen, you know. So yeah, those are just, you know, two small examples, or one small example and one pretty huge one.
Yeah, and that kind of reminded me of the video that Tony posted like about 3 or 4 weeks ago about the pastor who had an ongoing relationship with a youth, a young girl,
16
She
year
was
old.
16 years old at the time that they brought it to the front of the church. It was like 9 years that had passed.
Oh, wow.
And so like it was kind of weird though, because Chris and I
no,
were
she
even
was
talking
grown,
about- Yeah,
grown.
she was grown,
Yeah,
like
married.
and her husband, I guess he was the one that kind of like asked her to like bring it out. And it was kind of weird though, because like the way the pastor had presented it was just kind of like, well, I did some things and I cheated on my wife. Like, nigga, you ain't just cheat on your wife. You molested you
Yeah,
actually
sin,
didn't even,
boo-boo.
you raped a 16-year-old girl. Like,
Right.
let's keep it 100.
Right, a
You know what
child.
I'm saying? And a child. And so the way that he even glossed over it, like, and not to say that adultery is a gloss over, but that's a big difference between adultery and doggone raping a 16-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Come on, like you
Huge.
got to be real with that. But the weird part though was that like I don't know if there was anything really that came out of it. Like they called the pastor out and the people in the congregation was like, "Did you do it?" And then some people were like, "We love you, pastor." It was just like really weird. And I'm just sitting there like, was anything ever really resolved by them bringing it in front of the congregation? Like, because if you ask me, it might have needed to be resolved in closed doors with a few fisticuffs. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I would have felt a little bit better, is that if I found out that this dude did something to my wife for 9 years, oh, best believe, or maybe in front of the church, he might have caught the swinging. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like,
I'm telling you, he would have got his
that's
tail whooped.
and that wouldn't have made anything right. That wouldn't have made anything better. But it just felt like after watching it, I think it was like 15 minutes, I was just kind of like, all right, this is weird, and this is probably not going to stop anything from occurring in any other church ever.
I think, I mean, I get it. We're all human. And, you know, we can speak to this because we're pastors. Pastor Quinn is here. You know, as pastors, you do have a lot, you know, to handle. You have a lot of decisions to make. Sometimes it gets overwhelming, you know, and you are human. However, I feel like the reason why people are encountering church hurt is because I can expect this from someone just out here, maybe on my job. You know, maybe I can expect this from my boss or something like that. You know, if you're talking about sexual harassment and things like that, basically I can expect this from the world, but from church, it's a higher standard. And I believe
Right.
that when it comes to pastoring, and this is something we had to deal with, it was kind of like, whether you like it or not, you better chew it up, because you have to have it together. Like, you're gonna make mistakes, absolutely, but to me there is a moral standard to address those issues. You know what I mean? It's not like, okay, we're just gonna sweep it under the rug, because at the end of the day, you gotta ask yourself, like, what am I missing that I'm not convicted enough to handle this? That should hurt you to not deal with that. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be able to sleep. I would be like, nah, you need to get up out of here. Like, you messing with our kids. That's how I think
Right.
about, you know, our youth. Like, you messing with our kids, almost like another parent.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I think that's the perspective that they're coming from too, who are members, and seeing that this is happening. It's like, why don't you care about me? You care about the abuser more than you care about me. And that becomes the issue. And I think that's where I think church hurt was kind of created, because you talked about abuse or excuse, and when you think about abuse, it's like a misuse or something. You're misusing what church is supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like, you're not handling it the way that God intended for it to be handled. And if people are moving further away from church rather than coming to it, then somebody has to be held accountable to say, what do we need to do? You know, but I think honestly it becomes more of a business structure than it does, you know, a sanctuary.
Yeah.
And that's where, so it's like, okay, what do we need to do to keep this structure going? What do we need to do to keep it building? Okay, we're gonna have to do this. We gotta make some crazy decisions and sweep things under the rug so that other people, you know, won't hear about this and this can't get exposed. But it's like, no, expose what you need to expose as long as this person is okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what Jesus would have did.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna go after the one. Okay, you got 99. I was about to say 99 problems, but that's about to be like, you got,
She
but
got
that's
one.
real. But you have, you know, you have the 99 sheep, but I want this one. This is what's affecting me. You know what I mean? This is what could possibly be more affected, not just in the body of Christ, but man, we don't know where this incident is going to lead. What's going to happen to them? You know, this might have happened at 7. Where are they going to be at 17? Could I have changed this? At least tried. You know what I mean? And I think we don't take the time to really think about that because we're thinking about the bigger.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't recall Jesus really always thinking about the bigger. When he, you know, what was it? When he encountered Zacchaeus, it was like all of these people who wanted to encounter Jesus, but he said, hey, I'm coming to your house. You know what I mean? It was like he was so focused on the wounded soul rather than just the overall, I guess, picture. And I don't see that. Honestly, I don't see that now in our churches.
Well, I think a lot of it is, man, y'all don't say it so much.
Come on, Pastor Q.
Just from what you're saying, piggyback off that, what we've made the metrics for success in ministry has made us lose some of that loyalty to the gospel. Because now, if something happens with my youth minister, I got to really now, as the pastor, I got to make a decision. Do I allow what we've built with 5,000 members to go down? And so it's not a loyalty to the word no more. It's more of protecting the image. And so I get it. And I'm not defending nobody. I do believe some of these pastors are going home crying. Bawling out like, Jesus, what the world was he thinking? Matter of fact, what the hell was he thinking? But he's sitting at home with a board that's saying, hey, we're gonna do some damage control because we not finna let this whole church go down because of John who did what he did with the 16-year-old. And so a lot of that stuff's happened, and so the 16-year-old leaves with this for the next 20 years of her life. Like, man, that whole church let me down. That church still standing. You see what I'm saying? In their mind, okay, we may have not done the wrong thing, but more souls got saved. This and 13, like you said, they're not just gonna focus on that one, you know. And then there's a lot of different ways to look at it. You know, the church that has something to lose, do they always do the right thing?
Right.
Then versus that church that feel like we ain't got nothing to lose, we ain't got but 10 members anyway. Everybody know what you mean.
Right.
So we gonna tell, they can tell who they want to tell. We want some publicity anyway. So we gonna use it, you know. And so I think it's just so many different things. Like, I mean, even as a pastor, I've been in the as a parishioner, I've been in the pews. I've also been in the pulpit. So I've encountered a number of examples that I could say, okay, man, that kind of got to me. That kind of hurt me. Even as a pastor, as a leader, sometimes, you know, we probably get hurt all the time. And, you know, but you have to, you know, and I think sometimes as leaders, because we're spiritually mature to a certain place, now we brush off when something hurts somebody, like, bro, that hurt you?
Yeah. I
It's
just want to say that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, me and my wife, we get things sometimes. I be like, is she really mad about that? But that could be major to her and it's minor to me. And sometimes I believe leadership look at stuff that is minor, and then, you know, the parishioner looking like, no, that was huge to me. That really, you know, really affected me. And then the leaders looking like, we up here dealing with a $5 million mortgage. We're dealing with something, and you worrying about because somebody told you were ugly. and so real. It never really gets the attention that it needs. And so I do believe that, for leadership, per se, I'm just give y'all an example. I mean, it blew my mind once I heard a pastor, and we was talking. Just talking like pastors talk. People talking. I ain't gonna say pastor. We just talking, and he was like, all of a sudden he was like, man, that faggot.
Whoa, wait a minute.
I said, that faggot. So now I'm thinking, am I supposed to say it too? Because I'm the new guy.
Yeah.
And the comfortability to say it in front of me and you not really knowing me like that.
Yeah.
And to even push it even further, it hit home for me because, somebody that's close to me, is gay.
Yeah.
And so you use that terminology. I'm looking like, And so it ended up turning out to be a big thing because what the pastor said got back to the person in the church. And the person in the church ended up going to these people, and these people couldn't go into these people. And I'm sitting there like, and then I had to end up being the person like, well, you heard it. Did he say it?
Yeah, I ain't gonna tell you.
This is the truth. And see, now I'm in a bad place because at the point, I was in a position.
Yeah.
So
Do I take down the head man?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? I was young. Do I take down the head man? What's going to happen to me? I got a wife. I got kids. What in the world am I? And so I think sometimes a lot of that church hurt is inexperience. It's people that feel like they just don't know what to do. And it's like, if you have people in manipulation, if you're in a ministry of manipulation, you already jacked up anyway. And everybody's going to be impacted by that, but it's just so many different scenarios.
Yeah. I think he said something big, like, yes, pastors do go home and it's almost impossible to deal with everything. Like, we dealt with some big situations and members left because they were like, we felt like you didn't deal with it. And it was like, but to us, we did. We dealt with this for a long time. Like, we
not how you wanted us to.
Right. And we had to address it, but we didn't leave it unaddressed. You just wanted us to side with you, but we couldn't, you know what I mean? Because what's right is right. And so I think this leads us into the excuse part, as well. But I think, yes, there is a lot that goes through, the pastor's head. What do we do? But I just feel like I don't know, because I don't know behind the scenes when it comes to certain situations. I think what sticks with me the most, the molestation. When it comes to the, you didn't say hi and all that other stuff, I'm just like, okay. Yeah. But when it comes to stuff like that, it's like, I don't know, like, even if you kept the youth pastor in place, did you go to the person who was molested and some type of counseling, talk to them, love on them? I don't know, but I just feel like there's more we can do to kind of draw people closer to the church rather than...
This is what they took to the 16-year-old. How can we shut your mouth?
Yeah.
How can we shut your family's
That's
mouth?
true.
We cannot take down this giant in the community.
Yep.
And again, I'm not taking up for them, but these are the conversations, that they're having. And so there's no integrity of the gospel. There's because who's going to hold me accountable? I'm now equivalent to Arthur Blank in Atlanta.
Yep.
Who's going to touch Arthur Blank? So who's going to, and it's bad. Now, don't get me wrong. It's horrible because all we're doing is we're teaching another, people that's coming up on us in leadership, just remember, do what we do. This is how you handle problems when they come along. And so now all I'm doing is just teaching my children, hey, when we do things that's not ethical, when we do things that's not biblical, hey, don't worry about that. This is when we misuse this term. God has grace and mercy upon everybody. I get that. But if you intentionally know what you're doing wrong, that is something totally different. But I know you that.
Well, just what you just said, about, all right, how can we shut them up? Let's get them this money or whatever we gonna do for them losing the integrity of the gospel. And it reminded me of something that Jesus said. I'm paraphrasing. I'm bad at this, but I paraphrase real hard.
Are you good?
But
the Robert Hooper version.
This is the Rob Hooper version. But Jesus basically was like, if you lead one of these little ones astray, it'd be better for you if a millstone was tied around your neck and thrown into the sea. And I'm like, Jesus don't play about the kids, man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it'd be better for you. So meaning Jesus got something worse in store. Like there's something worse than this.
But it's like what you just
You know.
said, Rob. Jesus don't play about the kids, but we play about Jesus. I was
Yeah.
no, seriously.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
I was listening to somebody, and I'm finna research it. But I believe they said it was Gandhi. But there was a statement made where he said, "I love your Christ, but I don't
Like
love your Christians
Yeah.
because your Christians don't live nothing like your Christ."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Tupac.
powerful, man.
I mean, that's
That was
what's happening.
Tupac that said it.
And Pastor Pac.
And I think that's one of the things that we're observing, you know, with the church hurt. Like, are we exempling Christ?
Yeah.
You know, that, you know, what is the great commandment? You know, that we love. Wait, how many folk in church don't love nobody?
Exactly.
I mean, even
Don't
from
even like you. Like,
don't even like you.
and
Right.
we'll tell you, like,
Yeah.
you know, and I think that's the thing. But it's crazy because it's like what I'm realizing too, and you guys can kind of agree or disagree. But what I'm realizing is, okay, so this is what we're not going to deal with now, but somewhere about 10 years down the line, it's like all hell breaks loose. Everything at the end of the day, if you're intentional about covering something up
It's gonna come
and
out.
literally not doing what needs to be done or following, you know, the way of the gospel to kind of help build your church, it's exposed. Like, there's a big church right now. I won't say, I'm not a name dropper, but there's a big church right now that's being openly exposed all through cable. All through, you know, when your sin going on cable, like you done did some stuff.
Several channels.
You can watch
Several
what's going on
channels.
demand.
Yeah.
Multiple 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right, like whoa, like multiple volumes, everything. But they did the same thing. It was like, oh, we're gonna pay you to be quiet, but you may pay, but that's temporary.
Yeah.
Right.
And because if you didn't show me the love of God, at the end of the day, like, that's money is it runs out,
Yeah.
but not my pain,
Yeah.
not the abuse, not the manipulation, not the hurt. Like, that's still in me. And best believe this might have happened when I was 17, but now I'm 37,
Yeah.
so I'm coming out. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And that's what you got to realize. And it's not about, okay, do the right thing because you might be exposed. No, do the right thing because you literally should care about the heart of your people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not even about exposure, but if you choose to go ahead and cover it up, best believe at some point, because you did not deal with the heart,
Yeah.
that brokenness is still going to be exposed.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Oh, no.
Go ahead.
So one of the things, like, because I hear what you're saying, and I kind of want to push back just a little bit, and here's why. Because, you know, I did watch the documentary, and there's layers to all of this, right? To where, like, something that somebody in leadership does not mean that the pastor knows. Senior pastor knows.
That's true.
And so what I've noticed being a part of churches, either big or small, there's always gates in place to prevent the senior pastor from hearing or knowing. So by the time the senior pastor gets to hear something, it's like they game of telephone, right?
Right.
I can tell everybody something around the room. By the time he can get back to Chris, it might be something different, right? So this is what happens when the pastor sits in his weekly meeting or his morning meeting and he hears something. And Pastor Q, you know what I'm talking about. You hear something, but when you get to the source, it is something totally different. They done left out names, they done left out situation, times and dates and all these different things. And so my frustration comes, it's like when we watch these specials, like I watch the specials to be informed, but when I watch these specials, I watch them from more of a high level view because I don't want to look at this leader, this man and woman of God who has taken this gospel around the world and done some amazing things. I don't really think that they're going to be involved in the tiniest thing that happened in a church 20,000 miles away. They're not informed on that. there's no way they can be informed on something like that. And by the time they do hear it, it is something, oh yeah, it's been taken care of, blah, 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 blah. Because guess what they're doing? They're literally overseeing 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 people, situations. They're having these meetings with all these different leaders and all this stuff. It's almost impossible.
It is.
For someone to be that
Well, I
high.
think that comes into place though with holding people accountable. So I may not be home. Let me just use my home for example. If I'm not home, that does not give my wife or my kids the right to do what the hell they want to do.
Right.
I'm teaching and putting people in place that's holding them accountable. And so if I'm not there, what's the accountability system that's put in place? That even if pastor is away, I was just preaching about this with the Hebrew boys when they put the Hebrew boys in the fire furnace. Well, they homeboy, they weren't even there. But the 3 Hebrew boys still did what was right.
Yeah.
So do the pastor have to necessarily be there all the time? So my thing is, what is the accountability piece that's in place and I think a lot of times when it comes to ministry, again, this is not everybody. We're just talking about church hurt.
Yeah.
When it comes to ministry, the larger we get, the more powerful we get, the more lights and cameras we get, the more all of that starts taking place, we start feeling untouchable. Some people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying everybody.
Yeah.
And when we start feeling untouchable, we start becoming too relaxed on doing the things that we did when we first started.
Yeah.
When we first started, them 10 people, hey, you need to be like XYZ. We got 50 people, all right, you need to be like XYZ. We got 100, and then I got 10 armor bearers, all right, y'all got it.
Yeah.
Now they got it now.
Yeah. That's true. And it's like
that's true.
It is true. And it's like I see what you're going with that. But it's like let me say like two things real quick. 2 things real quick. So one is that if for me to have put somebody in place, that would have to say that I'm possibly a good judgment of character, right? Mm-hmm. But am I always a good judger of character? Absolutely not.
No.
Mm-hmm. Because
Can't
guess
be.
what? They play the game to get to where they are, so they can be happy. Hey, we've seen that, people smile in your face. You know what I'm saying? The backstabbers, they just made songs about it, right? Mm-hmm. Your homeboy trying to get your girl behind your back, like it happens. Somebody that's closest to you. So the church isn't exempt from that. But what I'm saying is that, like, should the pastor take the downfall? Because at the end of the day, the pastor is the one, the senior pastor is the one that can take the downfall, and that person, because they're not in the limelight, hey, I can go to another church and it can happen again.
It's the culture. The pastor establishes the culture in the church, point blank, period. So if you have people, you're going to get those people that just buck the system and have their own agenda. There's grace for, you got caught slipping. But the pastor creates the culture. Yep. So if you got a lot of mean-spirited people, sneaky people, some perverts, you may not know all the details. But if you are being the leader you supposed to be, something gonna drop in your lap, something gonna come, the Holy Spirit gonna tap you on your shoulder, like you need to pay more attention to that. And then if the pastor takes accountability, he don't have to take the fall for somebody else's actions. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I think we don't give people enough credit when it comes to you just saying, you know what, I messed up and I'm truly sorry. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. People will receive that, and then you move forward in a different way. People will receive that. People will respect that. People get to acting crazy with the church when you just don't take no responsibility for nothing. And so, like I said, it's the culture. It's the culture of it. He did that because he knew y'all would pay. You know what I'm saying? They said that because that's how the pastor taught. You know what I'm saying? So
that's what
you know what I'm saying? Like the pastor talks like that. The pastor handles people that way. And so the people right up under them are going to do the same thing to the people right up under them. And so it's like I said, the pastor does have a lot of responsibility. Just like a CEO of a company, somebody crazy say something who work for Delta or whoever, or even CNN or whatever, they say something crazy, guess what they going to do? They gonna get quiet for a minute. Then they're gonna release a statement. This person no longer works for us. Blah 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 blah. X Y Z. And then people like, okay, they tried to take the initiative to make it right. You know what I'm saying? And not brush it under the rug. These are the facts that we know, and this blah 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 blah. Now you gotta take responsibility for some stuff. You know?
Yeah.
No, and that's true. I was just gonna say, you know, and the points you made, Rob. You know, I was with you, and I started thinking about it. I'm just like, a pastor is the word pastor comes from the word shepherd. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when you think about that, it goes back to what we were saying about the 99, leaving the 99, go get the one. Like, care for every single one, you know what I mean? And so my thing is, you know, when there's a situation like what we were talking about, you know, with the youth pastor and the young lady, for example, you know, clearly, yes, you know, you're going to have other people under you and things like that. You might have a million different things, but to step into the role of pastor, I feel like, you know, you need to be present for your location, your people. And, you know, if there's going to be a million other things, then maybe you need to step aside and be the evangelist, or maybe you need to step aside and be the apostle for a while. You know what I'm saying? Because the pastor is like, no, I'm the shepherd. I love the sheep. I'm with the sheep. The sheep can come talk to me. And, you know, I'm gonna be straight up. You know, I'm not going to say no names, but I worked at a church, you know, with over 20,000 people and on staff there. And I had opportunities to. I never ever spoke to the pastor. Not once, ever. And you know, it was just not a big deal for me to do that. And so, but my thing is, but there were people there who wanted to, but did not have opportunities and never had an opportunity to. And I'm like, you know, that doesn't sound right to me. So in my mind, I'm thinking, yes, you're right. There are all of these responsibilities. And I saw it firsthand, because I know what they did and how many people they impacted and how many people they blessed. But at the same time, when you come to me with a situation like that, whether you say it's handled or not, oh, it's handled, that's wonderful. Let me talk to them.
Right.
Have them come in for a meeting with me directly, because that's a big situation. That's a situation that I don't care how many of y'all handled it. I don't care what y'all did to handle it. I need to come and have a conversation with them, because that's my sheep, and I love the sheep, and I'm the pastor. I'm the shepherd. I'm the good shepherd. You know, in this situation, you know, of course, Jesus the good shepherd, but you know, but you know what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I feel like there's a level of responsibility that has to take place when you take on that role of pastor. That, you know, that you have, you know, and I worked on staff in youth ministry, and each one of them kids, I felt, you know, I'm like, ain't nothing about to happen to my kids. Those are my kids. When they was up there with me, when they was up there with us and my team and the team up there, those are my kids. Ain't what happened? You know, I remember somebody's purse got broken and stolen. You know, somebody broke in their purse and took their money while worship was going on. And, you know, we was like, okay, we stopped everything. We said, all right, y'all come over here. Everybody, you come over here. What's going on? And we stopped everything, because we were like, look, this is not okay. This can't happen, you know, in here. Like, we're not going to let this happen here. Once we found out what was going on and who was doing it, you know, we talked to the parents, and, you know, there were different things that we had to do to handle the situation and you know, make sure the kid, I think at the end of the day, we had to end up banning the kid from the services. But, you know, there's just a level of responsibility that I took, because those are children, you know what I'm saying? And I had to make sure they were okay.
That kind of leads me to, and this is something I've toyed in my head for a long time, and just kind of throwing this out there, is that, and I've heard this, and I'm just going to throw the statement out there. I heard from somebody that I truly respect in ministry, that it is not possible for a pastor to be able to pastor more than 200 people.
I agree.
It sounds about right. You know, I've never been in that position, but I say that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And now this is coming from someone who I believe that, you know, he has some really revelation about it. And to saying this, he's not saying that these large ministries are not ministries that are for God, but he actually named it. He said that there's 5 types of churches that's out there, and I'll give them to you real quick. He said you have the evangelist church, or the evangelical church. What is that? That is your large church, like your Hillsong, your elevation, right? That it basically focuses on evangelism, and that's it. Getting people in, getting people saved, and all of that, right? But what ends up happening is that after you get saved 52 weeks in a row, you want something a little bit more different. So you go to a teaching church, right? You go to Bill Winston, Creflo Dollar, those type, where you get involved in the teaching because you want to get a better understanding of, okay, really what is this word saying to me, right? So you have the teacher, he made a joke about a teacher, pastor will just be like, all right, we'll finish up next week. And it made me laugh because that's the ministry that we came out of, and say, pastor just be like, all right, we'll finish it up next week. It's not the whole salvation call and what's going to happen if you were to die tonight. And, you have the euphoric music. Like, that's where I started going to church, but it was different, right? And then what ended up happening is when you leave the teaching church, you want to have an experience now. So you want to go to the Bethels. You want to go to see the laying on of hands. You don't want to be under the construct of time, and you want to be caught up in the third heaven and all these different things, right? And you want to see the miracles of God take place. You want to see the gold dust falling from the ceiling and all of this stuff, right? This is what you want. And I think he said it was 4 types of church. I'm sorry. And then he said, after all that's said and done, most people eventually find themselves in the community church.
Yeah.
And he said the community church is the church where it's only about 200 people or less. The pastor knows everybody by name. He knows every single situation that's going on in every single person, right? And he said those are the types of churches that most people, they start at the evangelical and they end up at the community church. And he said that he doesn't feel like a person can adequately pastor more than 200 people. And I agree with that from a standpoint of, if you're going to get to people personally and know people personally, like that's it. But what I'm saying on the flip side is, if you have a church, 20, 30, 50, 100,000 members, it is impossible for you to know the character of every single person. It is impossible. This is what I'm saying. This is my personal feeling. It's impossible for you to know the character of every single person that you put in leadership, every person that they put in leadership. Because take, for example, the home church, and everybody knows the home church that we came out of is World Changers, right? World Changers, for years, Pastor Creflo Dollar had been known for prosperity teaching, right? This man has been teaching grace the last 10 or so years, right? To where we get an understanding of grace. However, you will run into people today, 10 years later, still echoing a message that they heard, that they feel that this is him and this is what he believed. Chris ran into somebody while she was at the gym the other day, and he was talking about all this stuff. And it's kind of like this. The way a message has to be projected and spoken over and over and over and over and over and over and over. I'm gonna do that Marshawn Lynch over and over and over and over and over. The message has to be delivered so many times for people to understand that something has changed. And so, like you say, the culture, yes, the culture could have been like that 20 years ago, and that pastor could be different now. But in between 20 years ago and now, he could have been saying stuff over the last 20 years. But the person that is sitting in there that has refused to change, that is their responsibility to be able to change. I don't think that's the pastor's responsibility when he's been changed his message 20 plus years ago.
But you can't have members in your church, and you got to sell out to the vision of the church, and the people that's closest to you ain't moving how you moving. So if you pick that up, you see them talking to somebody a little bit crazy, and you give them the opportunity, hey, well, you a little too close to Sister Brenda, and they can't get with the program, they gotta go. Like
That's facts.
if it was a job, you would have to go. This is unacceptable.
Yep.
This is our calling. This is our vision. This is serious business. Like, first of all, we have a reputation. I mean, not reputation in as far as like I'm so fixated on my image, but yes, a reputation. And we can't tolerate that. I don't know where we get this, where we have to be a part of a church from the time we were born to we died. People move on. It's a church, 100 churches on every corner. Go on, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's okay. You can do that in love. Give him his little package and send him on his way. But if you know that you're transforming and you the pastor is, like I said, has a vision and he knows, you know, his sheep, then you got to make sure those people connected to you is moving how you moving, because if not, they gonna make you look bad.
And I think, no, go. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, you know, there was a guy that was in the seminary with me, and we knew the guy wasn't going to seminary because he believed in God. The guy was just going to seminary so he can further use it against Christians, right? I'm saying to say, everybody just don't go to church for the same reason. Everybody, there are really some people that come to church because they're saying, I'm going to show y'all, there's a woman somewhere in this world right now that is saying, I'm going to show you that I'm going to get McNeil or I can bring Pastor Baker down.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's some man that's saying, I'm going to show you that your pastor, he's telling his wife, your pastor is only about money. I'm going to prove it to you. Like, some people are just coming for these particular reasons. And so, now, the churches y'all talking about, I want to just, first of all, let me just thank God for some churches that have some of them freedoms. I come from traditional Baptist church. You don't have all them freedoms. It's 30,000 different places and people you got to say this to, and the board and the deacons and the chairman who put the first 2 bricks in the church, his family, that family. And so when you talking about going back to that smaller community church, a lot of people do want that. They want that, but guess what happened? After them 52 weeks of being there, they're like, oh, Lord, send me back to New Birth, because I'd rather be back in a crowd instead of them territorial people, you know, that's hurting me because they won't let us in their clique. So when I come from a church that has a lot of ministry, I'm enjoying that, so much different opportunity. So, I may can go to a smaller church and it's more intimate, but I'm starting to realize that they're not open. Like, I can't get in the clique. I'm trying to serve, but not every church is like that.
Not every church is like that. Like I said, like when me and my husband moved to Virginia, I come from a smaller ministry. Like, I was probably one of the first kids in the church, like founding members. And so when we moved to Virginia, I know for me, it was like, I don't want to be a part of no big church. I don't want to be a part of no clique. I don't want to, you know, and I was very hesitant about joining like a larger church. But just so happened we ended up going to a church, and me and the pastor just connected for whatever reason. And it wasn't cliquish, which really surprised me, because it was like, but the pastor wasn't that way. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, you know, even in a smaller church, there's a couple little cliques, you know, I ain't never, you know, and just the family feel that, you know, you belong here. And then me not just seeing you on Sunday morning, hey, bring the kids over for, you know, for a play date or whatever. And they actually did life. And when I say that transfer, and I grew spiritually and healed spiritually so much in that situation where I thought I really wasn't gonna grow. It's too many people. They got 4 services. No, this is just too much for me. But I grew in that situation. So when we came back home, I was uncomfortable in the smaller situation, not because it was smaller, but just because of the culture that had been established in that larger setting. So you have the bigger church, and then you have the groups. You know what I'm saying? So you have the women. So even if I'm a part of this ministry and we meet on this particular day, you may be a part of the women's when you get to kind of do life with all these women of all these different ages and nationalities and stuff like that. So it was just the culture that just kind of just changed me. And so like I said, I ain't met a church that's completely perfect, but it's some people out there that's really trying to make sure that everybody is seen about and loved on, and not just coddled, but growing.
That's what I was going to say. I was just going to answer your question about, you know, whether a pastor can effectively pastor a church bigger than 200 members. I honestly believe so. You know, same with Tony and Pastor Gwen. I come out of a church that is smaller, and I experienced all of my church hurt there. I mean, I'm not being honest, like all okay. Like I didn't experience any church hurt in a big church, but there it was like, what in the world? Like, I mean, I'm talking about being called B from the first lady. Oh,
First lady called you a
hurt. Okay.
B?
She said she
Yeah,
called you a
I
Bravo.
really-
She called you a Bravo.
A bro.
Wow.
No, but
bro.
Bravo.
bro.
No. I'm talking about it. I mean, real hurt. You know what I mean? And because I mean, I just couldn't understand. And it's a smaller community church. You know the pastors. You know the first lady. You know all of these people. But man, it was rough. You know what I mean? It was so hard. I had to go. When I got older, I went back because that was the way. I think I was in Bible college, and one of the assignments was something that left a mark on you. Are you able to go back?
Girl.
You know, and I did. I went back. I talked to the pastors, things like that in order to get my healing. But I had
remember
to
that.
go back. But it was like that, like to the point where it just stuck with me. But for me, it made me realize that it's not about the size of your church. It's about who you are. You know what I mean? And so if you're a good shepherd, I don't care if you have 10,000 sheep, you should be able to effectively lead them. If this is your position, if this is where you're called, your heart is there. Like I've seen some mega church pastors who I have a relationship with, and they have multiple churches, but like my mentor, she answers the phone all the time. You have
10,000
like
members.
10,000 members. How do you have time to do that? You know what I mean? But the way that they have that time is because they make time.
Yeah.
And so everybody who's been to their church is like, I feel like you can't talk about my pastors. I feel like, I know my pastors.
Yeah.
You know what I
that'd be
mean? And
funny.
so, yeah,
That'd be
but it's
funny.
like no matter what she's doing, where she is, hey, what's going on? Make the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like no matter how many people God sends under you, He will give you the grace. His grace is sufficient. He will give you the grace to lead them. But it's about, are you relying on His grace? Or are you relying on your pride, your image? What is your motive? What's backing you?
Yeah.
And so if God is literally there and you're following His plan, you can pastor a church well over 200 people and actually be a good, effective shepherd where you don't have a bunch of people saying, I need to know my pastor.
Yeah.
I need to be in his office. No, if you are feeding your sheep well, they ain't thinking about that.
they
They
don't
are
need to.
full.
Yeah.
They ain't hungry.
It's kind of what Rob was saying. Like, he had the opportunity, but he felt like he didn't need to, because at the end of the day, there are people that just want to be in the pastor's face for whatever reason, just to say that they know they pastor, to say that they, pastor came over to the house for chicken. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just to say that. And that is, honestly, that's the wrong premise, or the wrong reason why we should be at church in the first place.
Yeah.
Is for that. And I think that is also what breeds church hurt. Why? Because maybe the pastor don't want to come to your stinking house.
Right.
Maybe the pastor like his own family.
I've experienced that. Like, we have in our family, we had members that legit threw a fit because we did not invite them to personal family events.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And we had to tell them, hey, look, we don't want to come to your family fish fry on Friday. Like, go and, but this is our family time. You know what I'm saying? But I think it speaks to, well, you can go to this culture, establishing boundaries, with the pastor. I feel like it is a special grace that comes with where you are accessible to your people when they need you, but it's not like in an unhealthy way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's where that grace comes in, where you can still make people feel like, they really care about me, where you still have that boundary there where you're not wore out or it's not infringing on your family time and all of that type of stuff. But yeah, I've experienced legit people do that. And like I'm not getting in trouble all the time. I had to tell them, look, some of y'all ain't right. So, we used to do that, but now we don't do that anymore. You can't come. Like, point blank period, you can't come. So that grace is important to have in leading.
But that's and that's important that you said that, and because that's another form of church hurt from the membership to the leadership.
Yeah.
How the membership can hurt the leadership. That's church hurt too.
Yeah.
Like it ain't one way.
Yeah, it's
You know,
not.
because it comes from that toxic culture, like we said. And that toxic culture says you know, well the pastor needs to be accessible to me 24/7, and that's not it either. You know, there needs to be a balance. You know, if your pastor got a family, your pastor, you know, I know pastors whose kids are angry and don't like that because, you know, the church kids got more time with my daddy than I did, and the people at the church got more time. And you know, I didn't even grow up with my daddy because he was out preaching and doing this and that and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, so that's a form of church hurt too when we expect those leaders to be available 24/7, or I want to come to your house or come to my house and have some fish fry or chicken or okra, whatever you got. You know, it's like, no, I'm doing something. You know, like my time for you is the church time, unless you have an emergency. And then if I'm, you know, and even still then, if I'm available, you know, hopefully me or someone else on the leadership team can come. Not me, I'm talking that in the, you know, voice of a pastor. I ain't no pastor, but you know, but just saying though, like, you know, there's a balance there, and so that church hurt, it goes both ways. So you know, we try to, you know, deny it, but it's like, no, we just have to fix the culture and create a healthy culture and healthy boundaries where that's concerned.
Yeah.
You know, it was Campbell. Most of y'all know Vincent Campbell.
Yeah.
He was talking the other day that, you know, and this was a strong, you know, statement he made. I don't know if you've seen it when he was talking about, you know, the problem in the church ain't the people. He said it's leadership. And I know most people that was listening to it probably was like, so the people ain't wrong at all. And I think what he was basically saying, like, you know, when you're a better leader, you're gonna equip the people in your church better, your teams better, and it's gonna ultimately start to provide a better culture. Like, you know, because I the other day I told my wife, I said, I don't think God liked me. She was like, why'd you say that? I said, you know, the last two churches that I've been given an assignment for are very traditional churches. Jarvis know this. Both of them been in existence over 100 plus years. You know, and so you can just imagine over 100 plus years how many different people, families have come in there and put their footprints in there. And then so you have somebody comes in and come to his defense. Now you have to keep teaching and preaching the same thing over and over, trying to get this culture to change. And you can see it with your eyes, and you don't have to be super spiritual. You can just see it like you're saying, wait a minute. Okay, they still don't get it yet. You know, we got people coming in, and for some odd reason, them three sisters over there,
what's wrong with kicking folks out?
you know,
Right. What's wrong with that?
No,
if you keep stirring up crowd in the church, what is wrong with saying, hey, you got to go?
'Cause you know what typically happens? What I've seen in situations like that, why they typically don't let that happen, is because those are the family churches. And if you kick that sister out right there, she taking 90 with them, and the church only got 105.
Okay, so are we putting our trust into these people, or are we putting our trust in the mission?
It's not the mission, because you can have a pastor that comes in there with the mission, but everything they got written helps to fight them families, like your bylaws and all those different things. You see what I'm saying? So it's like,
I hear what you're saying, but still.
no, trust me, I get what you're saying. I get totally what you're saying. And so
What they call it, left-handed fellowship? What they call it?
and it's so much that when you come in, you're trying your best to prayerfully lead, you know, by what you're feeling like God is having you to lead. And so it's like, okay, you know, which fires do you try to put out first? Okay, and is that a fire I need to put out first? Because at the same time, here's the flip side of that. I may be kicking out a person who went through church hurt themselves.
Right.
So now I got to, you know, really do more research, sit down with the family and say, let's talk a little bit more, because it could be a reason why you acting out like this.
But most leaders ain't gonna take the time to see why that person mean as hell.
And that
They just gonna excuse it away and let it continue. I don't know. This is my experience. You know the person mean as hell, and you just you know that's how they is.
See, that's the difference of being a good shepherd, you know, because you kind of said something. You said, you know, is it better, wouldn't it be better to just kick them out and just, you know, if they take 90 members with them, you trust God, through the process of maybe rebuilding the church. But I look at it on the flip side, do you continue to preach the gospel and trust God to overtake whatever abuse or issues that they're dealing with for transformation to occur? Because that's what shepherding is about. Whatever I preach, it has to be a seed to ignite transformation. Because if I'm delivering a message, transformation isn't overnight. We know that. We're free moral agents. We can make whatever choices we want, but you're not in leadership. So you can sit here in the pew, you can raise hell, but I'm going to continue to preach this gospel because I trust the power of the word of God. I trust the power of the Holy Spirit that's coming forth out of my mouth. And I trust that his presence, when you encounter it, you can sit here and do what you want to do, but I'm not going to kick you out. But if you won't surrender under the presence of God, then you probably going to feel uncomfortable to the point where you want to leave. You kind of get what I mean? So it's like, good shepherding is, I'm going to take the time to do what God has called me to do. I'm an assignment. So I
But most people pander to those people, like in those situations where the family churches, they pander to those people. And like in the situation with the video, he probably had all type of people, probably done did business with people and all this stuff, and they covered him even in his mess. So my thing is, if it's not conducive to the culture, if it's not conducive to the mission, like I said, that approach may work. Like, you gonna be if you can't get with the program, you're gonna be so uncomfortable, you're gonna get on up out of here. But in most cases, from what I've seen, is like, we don't want to rub them. They tired the most. We don't want to rub them the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? And then so the people who getting beat up the most is like, well, I don't want to be bothered with this no more. Like, if that's y'all motivating, factor behind everything, I would rather just go somewhere else. It is not a big deal. I can find another church to go to. So I guess that's my stance on it. Like, kicking people out may be a little harsh, but still, I feel like you kicking up that much, that you need to go.
We
you need
definitely
to
had some people try to strong arm us that didn't want us to do certain things, and they was the highest givers, and we told the highest givers to see you later.
Well,
Ain't it always that way, though?
But it's just like politics. Well, yeah, go ahead.
It's always the ones that it's always that way.
Yeah.
It's always the ones that give a lot and they feel like their giving is
Controlling it.
Yeah, it's a control mechanism.
Yeah.
And it's I'm the biggest giver in the church, so you need to listen to my suggestion.
Yeah.
My suggestion that's actually me trying to tell you what to do. And it's like, man, this would be me if I was a pastor. Look, I can have church in my garage. I care.
We didn't kick them out. We just didn't succumb to their suggestions. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're not leadership, you know what I mean? Like, if you leadership and you acting a fool, that's different. We need you can no longer be in this position, like, because you're in a position of influence. But if you're a member and you're telling us this, it was simple. It was like, no, we're not changing that.
We not.
Like, it wasn't like, get out. It was just, no, we're not changing this, and they left.
Yeah.
And
I don't want to seem like I'm jumping on pastors. That's not what I'm saying, because like I said at both ends of the table. I know, like, people are trifling and they mistreat and use. They give the pastor their sob story and take advantage of pastors and all that. I get that, but everybody need to be at a place where when you hurt, process it.
Yeah.
That's how we stop that. If you hurt, that's from the pastor on. Like, you human too. You might need to sit down and talk to somebody about what you got going on. Because guess what? You going to carry that hurt and you going to put that on somebody else, So, yeah, I don't want nobody thinking I'm jumping on that. Because I'm not. But
the only thing is about that, a lot of people don't surround themselves with caliber type of individuals in ministry. And so if you're not surrounded by certain type of people, then you're going to think the way that you do things are always right.
Yep.
And so that's why I've always tried to put certain people around me, like, please, if you see something, as my friend, I want you to say something, because if not, you're really not my friend.
Right.
That's
So
big.
we have now in ministry a lot of leaders that ain't been led by nobody
Yeah.
and refuse to follow anybody.
Or got a whole bunch of spiritual daddies and mamas. I don't get that.
Did you read my post the other day? I said some people don't need to be your spiritual brother and father. They need to be like a spiritual third cousin. I mean, because it's exactly what we create. So now, because I can preach
Yeah.
a 30-minute sermon. I mean, my son, if he really want to, can go write a nice, really good sermon, right? I mean, you're talking about pastoring, leading people, having a shepherd's heart. He said, I give you pastors after my heart. That's a whole different heart to hold when it comes to ministry. So, you have people now that's in ministry and they're not in it because they have the heart for it.
Yeah.
So when I don't have the heart for it, guess what? I definitely ain't got the time for you because I don't have the heart for it. And so to sit down and have to really nurture somebody to answer my phone when I look at it like, here go this fool again. Instead of me really saying, you know what, let me answer the phone and really talk to this brother, put something in place. Even if I can't get to him every day, hey, I'm going to hook you up with Jarvis. This is what we're going to do. Put a plan together.
Yeah.
But when you don't have the heart for it, you don't care nothing about that. All you thinking about is the next time you go in and rip on Sunday morning, I preach them niggas crazy.
I slayed
the house, Doc.
Yeah. I hate Doc one more time. So listen, so we're gonna go ahead and this is a great conversation, y'all. We're gonna go ahead and bring this to a close just because we're going over time. But Rob, one of the things that we like to do, and we even have to kind of get to it because we've been doing a lot of it, but we like to ask everybody one simple question, and the question is this: where were you when you realized God was first for you?
Man, when I realized God was first for me, that is a tough question. I think it was, I can't remember exactly how old I was, but I was a young man. I was probably had to be 11, 12, 13. And, I grew up without my dad. I didn't meet my dad until I was 18. And, basically it was a, tough not knowing him and, not having access to him and things like that. And, living with my mom and my two older sisters. And, but I started reading the Bible. My mom made sure we were in church weekly, and I started growing closer to God around that time. And I just remember, praying and talking to God. And I remember a moment where I really felt like his presence and felt like his arms wrapped around me and him almost confirming, I am your father. Anything you needed a father to show you or teach you, I have you and I got you. And I feel and I remember this night specifically when this happened and literally sitting up crying in that moment. And I feel like that's when I realized God is real, and I need to make sure that I keep him in a priority position in my life always. So that's probably when I really had to understand that God had to be first.
Oh man, that's good. That's definitely good to hear. Well, everybody, that brings us to the close of another amazing podcast. We hope everybody listening enjoyed.
We don't want to go nowhere. We don't want a principle.
I just want to say, this was awesome, really amazing. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I hope y'all continue this for a long time, because it's been a blessing to me. I've listened to the first episode so far, and it's definitely been a blessing to me, and I know it's going to be a blessing to a lot of other people. So
cool. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Bless you.
And definitely we're gonna have you back. We're gonna have you and your wife back together.
Awesome, awesome.
Maybe we can do some couple stuff so this is it. This is our platform. Everybody, I hope everybody's enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. I'm learning. It's good. It's good for me. So with that said, I guess we're gonna call this one a close, and we will see y'all on the very next episode. All right.
All right.
Church ain't hurt nobody.
Liar.
Jarvis.